Settle in. We light a candle for the Tao, which teaches the purpose of life is inner harmony, peace, and longevity, achieved by living in accordance with the Tao. We light a candle for these shamanic traditions, which teaches that through a close relationship with the natural world, one gains guidance, support, and wisdom to live their best life. We light a candle for Hinduism, which teaches that we are able to escape bondage, ignorance, and a state of illusion through multiple experiences of life. Each life leads us closer to enlightenment. We light a candle for Judaism, which teaches the highest calling is to obey the commandments of God and to live ethically according to law. We light a candle for all forms of Buddhism, which teaches the purpose of life is to avoid suffering and gain enlightenment. We light a candle for all forms of Christianity, which teaches salvation from sin through faith in Christ, through sacraments, and through good works. We light a candle for all forms of Islam, which teaches that through surrender to the will of God, one will gain paradise. We light a candle for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, which teaches that the soul is eternal and essentially good, and that the purpose of life is to develop spiritually and draw closer to God. We light a candle for all forms of New Thought, which teaches the divinity of all creation, the supremacy of thought over matter, and that through a law of cause and effect, one creates the circumstances of their life. We light a candle for all those who are as yet unaware of the power and presence of Spirit in their lives, and for the space that we are holding for them, and for all faith traditions unnamed in this ceremony. The final candle is the healing candle. It represents the revealing of the divinity at the core of all experience. This is your candle for whatever is in your mind and heart that requires the light.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Mary. Let's turn our attention to the peace candle. And we keep the peace candle consistently illuminated as a reflection of a consistent illumination of peace within our hearts and souls. Within each and every one of us is a core of peace. And so we honor that by understanding that as we allow our inner peace to inform every aspect of our being, every thought, every activity, every relationship, then we become conduits of and expressions of world peace. So let's share together this prayer for world peace. Divine love indwells each person and radiates from one to another. Harmony is established and peace reigns in the world. And that would have been a really interesting take because there's, you always have to have a story kind of nicely wrapped up, right? They didn't want it to be a nicely wrapped up story. And I think it would be really interesting if that was the way that it had gone. But basically everyone said, you got to wrap up the story. He has to have a resolution in some way. And I think that we're all seeking resolution in some way, right? I mean, don't we all want our stories to be wrapped up in a nice, tight little bow, right? Yeah. But I love this resolution. I love this resolution. In the script, the words that lead up to this song are basically asking Bobby, who's the main character, like, what is it that you think you want? And he kind of gets a little, he's kind of not pleasant about it. He says, he's kind of joking, when he says, oh, I want someone to need you too much. I want someone to know you too well. I want someone to pull you up short. Like, that's what he thinks he's going to get in the relationship. And then I don't know if you notice in the song, the word someone changes to somebody, because then he's like saying, you know what, this is what I really want. Somebody hold me too close. Somebody hurt me too deep. Somebody sit in my chair and ruin my sleep and make me aware of being alive. I love that turn, because it goes from him kind of poo-pooing it to like really saying, isn't this what I've been seeking all along? Relationship. But I like the spiritual idea around this relationship, because ultimately what I have come to realize in my own life is that the best relationship I could ever have is with myself. The most profound relationship I can ever have is with myself. And that's somebody who I might seek to need me too much or know me too well or pull me up short or put me through hell. That's got to be me first and foremost. From the point of view of a divine identity, to know that I am the presence and the power of something that is seeking expression through me and through all of us. There's a little, actually my favorite spoken line from all of musical theater is actually in this song as well. One of the characters, as Bobby is singing the song, there's actually a lot of like little interjections that we don't put into the performance, but there are all these little interjections of things that people are saying. And one of the characters says, you see what you look for, You see what you look for. I'm like, well, that's pure new thought. What is it that we are seeking in the experience and expression of our life? Well, that which we see, that which we look for is the thing that we will see. What I choose to look for is the divine in all things. What I choose to look for is the divine in all things, and so that is how I choose to see. I start each Sunday saying, I see the face of God. I see the face of God, and I invite us all to look around and see the face of God all around us. With this reminder that we are never alone. Bobby feels really lonely through a lot of that show, but we're never alone. We are never alone. This theme this month of presence is a reminder to me that we are never alone, because the presence is infinite. The presence being infinite means that it is everywhere present. There's no aspect of presence that is not fully expressing itself in all time and in all space on this plane of action and beyond, but we're not going to get into that necessarily too much right now. So what we may call presence, we put a label on it. What we may call presence is the infinite showing up as variety. And I love that idea too, that the infinite is showing up as variety. We are each a variation of the infinite. And we each express the infinite uniquely and magnificently. So the infinite, the presence, these are ways in which we speak of God. And in the Tuesday night class, the prayer class right now, one of the things that I bring up on the second class is that we talk about the divine, we talk about the infinite, and the moment, the millisecond we put language to that idea, we have limited it. We cannot conceive of an unlimited divinity. Because if I were to ask you to conceive of infinity, you're going to think of something. Well, that thing is limited. But what choice do we have? How do we talk about this stuff? How do we deepen into this stuff without limiting it? I'll tell you how I choose to do it. I choose to go into that state of feeling. Not necessarily emotive expression, but feeling. What is the feeling tone of creation that perhaps is beyond language? What does it feel like What does it feel like? That's the presence. That's the presence. And we can practice this presence. We can practice it moment by moment, by moment, by moment, by moment. So we live in an infinite paradox. You know what paradox means, right? I talked about this in class. But a paradox means two seemingly contradictory ideas that can be true at the same time. So we live in a paradox where this divine presence and power, this creative force, this creative source, this creative energy is both immanent, it is at hand, it is tangible right here and right now, and transcendent, it is beyond at the same time. God is both immanent and transcendent. We are an immanent expression of the divine, but the divine is transcendent. It is metaphysical, which is why we are a metaphysical teaching. Meta meaning beyond the physical. There's another definition that we use for God, and this is the joke in all the classes. The other definition we use for God is consciousness. What is consciousness? What does that mean? Consciousness. It's kind of a... Sherry, can you give me an idea? You have any idea? The answer to all. It is the answer to every single test question. If you ever take a test in one of my classes, I don't recommend you do this, but if you answered consciousness to every single question, I couldn't mark you wrong. Erwin Schrödinger, we're getting into the quantum, had this to say about consciousness. He said, consciousness is a singular of which the plural is unknown. Consciousness is a singular of which the plural is unknown. There is only one thing, and that which seems to be a plurality is merely a series of different aspects of this one thing. We are in a philosophy called unity. We're saying it's all one thing. All of it, all of creation, all things in this plane of action in the universe and beyond the universe, because we don't know what exists beyond the universe, but in the infinite, something exists beyond the known universe. It is all one unified wholeness. Now, I love this stuff. You know Neil deGrasse Tyson? I love seeing his videos come up. And there was a video that really challenged me. I pointed it out to Beryl last week, and she went and watched this video, and it's kind of, right? Where somebody said that there is a theory in physics that there's only one electron. There's only one electron. Because if you look at what we perceive to be separate electrons, there's no distinguishing factor between any electrons. And so Neil deGrasse Tyson tries to explain this, and this is getting really heady. I'm just giving you all a warning. He tries to explain this by saying if we take out the element of time, the potential of this electron to exist in all time and space is equal, and so everything that exists, all electrons are one electron. Doesn't that just make you go, huh? But it supports that idea. It is a singular of which the plural is unknown. There's only one thing going on, and we are aspects of that one thing, each and every one of us. You know what I love about that? It invites me to remember that I am an empowered individual because I have the power of divine creation showing up as me and at hand for me to use. Because the very creative aspect of God that is utilized to create is the very creative aspect that is me used to create. Can I simplify this? The faces all look different. If you look around, look at the faces all around you. I mean, even identical twins, there are differences, right? The faces look different, but the life looking through them is the same. The stories that we tell may sound similar. You know, the scripture is, if you look at scripture, the Hebrew scriptures and the Christian scriptures, it's basically an allegory for life. Basically from beginning to end. It's an allegory for life. The stories that we share are similar, but the awareness beneath them is a shared awareness. Presence is not something that belongs to us. It is what we are. We don't own presence. We don't own the divine. We don't own anything. It is what we are, fundamentally. We cannot be separate from. My favorite way of explaining this, in a phrase I believe was coined essentially by Emma Curtis Hopkins, and then shared throughout New Thought philosophy, there is only one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. What if you walked around every single day with that as your fundamental leading presence? There is only one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. That life is our life. Right here, right now. There's no aspect of our beingness that is not divine. There's no aspect of our beingness that is not presence itself. There's no aspect of our being that is not holy. There's no aspect of our beingness, the physical and the energetic, that is not pure, perfect, divine energy expressing. And so any seeming separation is just that. It is seeming. It is an appearance, but it is not truth. Where does this become a challenge? It becomes a challenge when I encounter people that I don't care for. Because I want to believe that person is separate. I want to go there because they challenge me. But I can heal the world by healing myself and my heart first and foremost, by realizing that in seeming separation, I am discounting the infinite nature of love. And so separation is just appearance. It's not a truth. What if we actually believed that? What if we truly lived every moment believing that? There is no separation. That's why we're called unity, not separation, by the way. There is no separation. What would change in your life if you led from that point of view? What would be the personal implications for you to go about your day and only choosing to see the face of God no matter what? No matter what. No conditions on that. No enemies. I love that song that we sing. I'm going to turn my enemies into friends. It's not about trying to force something to happen. It's about me changing my mind. I'm going to turn my enemies into friends by changing my mind. So community, this experience that we have of community, is not a collection of separate individualized identities. It is an expression of the one. Just like, you ready? Our physical bodies are a community of cells, 70 trillion cells that are all working in harmony. Why don't we reflect as community the very thing that works fundamentally as our bodies by working together and getting along and living in harmony? What if we perceived ourselves as individualized cells on this planet that make up a living organism? What would change from that point of view? We don't merely gather together here on this thing, in this thing called life. We don't merely gather. We are one life gathering as one another. God, the transcendent whole of things, of which you are, I'm, of course, reading a quote and then reading it badly, so that happens sometimes too. God is the transcendent whole of things of which you are an individualized part. Now, when we say individualized, we don't mean separate. We're not saying separate. We're saying we are an individualization of the one wholeness. By the way, that quote is Eric Butterworth, magnificent New Thought teacher and speaker and minister. God is the transcendent whole of things, of which you are an individualized part. There's the paradox. It is transcendent and individualized in and as each and every one of us. Not a single one of us is a small self trying to reach God. Let's let go of that paradigm, which we may have grown up with. You know, Beryl talked a little bit about the practice of affirmative prayer that we teach within the New Thought movement, and that is to acknowledge, first and foremost, God is, we are that, and from that point of view, we do not ask God for anything. We stake our claim as a divine expression. And so we're not trying to reach God out there. We're not supplicating ourselves. Oh, I did this on a Sunday many years ago. It's like, we're not the type of people who are like, oh, please, God, please make it so, right? We're the type of people who say, you know what? I know who I am, and it is so. It is so. It's why I wrote, and so it is, tattooed it on my arm as a constant reminder that my word is creative. My thoughts are creative, and the beliefs that are backing my word and my thought are creative. And the feelings I have around those beliefs and thoughts and words are creative. And I am constantly, 100% of the time, creating my life. Not only when I am in formal prayer, but when I recognize that my life is a prayer, which is what that poem means. My life is a prayer. And so I don't need to pray formally nearly as much as I did 20 years ago when I started in this philosophy. And I'll tell you, 20 years ago, I was like, I am going to pray. And I'm teaching a class now where we are going to pray, and I'm teaching a fundamental practice of prayer. But you know what? You embody the practice of prayer, it becomes your life. And you don't have to work so darn hard at it anymore. You are an individualized expression of the whole. This month's theme is presence. You are presence particularized. And when we gather, I don't see us as a room of separate seekers. I see us as a field of presence remembering itself. I'm here to remind you of your magnificence. And when one rises, we all rise. For we are each and every one of us connected at the level of being. And so who will you choose to show up as when you walk through those doors and walk out the main doors and get in your car and you drive down river, maybe to Craycroft or Swan, I don't know which way you guys go. But who will you choose to be when you exit here? Because as I often say, it's really easy to be here and to say, yes, oh, I get it, I understand it, and I'm living this philosophy, and it's really good, and yes, here we go. And then I get outside, and I'm like, that person over there really upset me. And I'll let you off the hook. Happens to me sometimes, too. You know, I've got to keep it real. I have my moments. But the good news is that the moment of that kind of reactive response to getting to a reasoned understanding of the divinity in the interaction has narrowed. That's the power of the practice. That's the power of the practice. We are all connected at the level of being. This is our DOS. Remember DOS? It was an operating system, not so much anymore. But I like to think of our DOS as our divine operating system. And an operating system means, you know, if that's our DOS, that what we do singularly has an impact on the whole. And so, if oneness is our divine operating system, if oneness is our DOS, love becomes practical. It changes how we live. It changes how we speak. It changes how we choose. And it changes the manner in which we serve ourselves and others. We can build a we awareness on purpose. And this is the driving factor of my ministry right now. To build a we awareness. Because new thought's really good at a me awareness. I'm going to change my life by changing my thoughts. Well, what if I say that I am approaching life with this idea, that I am a conduit for the transformation of our entire society through we thinking? What happens when our point of view around life is inclusive and not exclusive? You know what happens? People feel safer in our presence. Conflict dissipates because we refuse the idea of the enemy. And we elevate the whole because our choices ripple through the field. How will you choose to show up today? I invite us all to move forth by letting presence be our posture. There is one presence, one life, one love. This beingness is the living quality. It is truly living its life as each and every one of us. I sometimes say in prayer, I am living the life of God and calling it my own. But it is the life of the divine that I am living. It lives as me. It lives as us, and we are living it. So let us choose to live like the plural is unknown. Peace and blessings. You are magnificent. This week's life practice, if you're new to our community, I offer a practice that we can carry with us and engage in our everyday life as a way of making the spiritual philosophy, which can be pretty heady, right? Trying to make it practical. And so this is what I invite us to do this week and forevermore. In every interaction, silently ask yourself, what is the most enlightened response right now? Take a moment to let reactivity turn into divine response. In every interaction, silently ask yourself, what is the most enlightened response right now? That's the life practice.